Discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another Top 10. Yes, I now have my own book and I hope to fill this up one day. Fortunately, this book actually has like suggested top 10 lists to make, like my top 10 things to do if I only had 24 more hours to live. Wow, that is depressing. Like, who the hell would want to make a list of that? Like, I cry and then cry some more because I know I have 24. Whatever. That's not. So I scratch this out. Anyway, this one is actually a unique one. One I haven't seen before. And I'd be interested to see who else puts this on their list. And it is my top 10 long games. And what I mean by that is games that take well over an hour to play. And while some of you may be like, that's not long. Well, it's not really that long to me either, but to a lot of other people, it is. Like, I've heard plenty of times that it's like, well, that's on the long side, 60 minutes. It's like, really? That's long to you? But I believe I strayed away from, from any of those. Like, at most, I think my lowest one is an hour, nope, 2 hours. Nope, an hour and a half. Nope, 2 hours. I don't know how long an hour is. And now that doesn't mean that the time on the box is 2 hours, because those are typically a huge lie. So it's how long it typically takes me or my group of friends to play, or on average how long it takes us to play. So without further ado, let's get started with number 10, because I don't have a honorable mention for this list. So my number 10 is Relic. Relic is basically Talisman in space theme set in the Warhammer 40k universe. Clocks in at around 180 minutes, and that is about right. The reason why it's at number 10, and actually even on the list at all, is mainly because it has a nostalgic feel to me. And it replicates Talisman, but if I want to do that, I'll just play Talisman. But sometimes I'm in a sci-fi theme, and 40k does that relatively well, so I picked Relic. And the reason why it's nostalgic is because that was one of the first games that Kat ever bought for me, and I remember us playing on the floor at her parents' place, and just having a fantastic time. Like, just rolling because it was the first time she did. She wanted to play because it was with me. It was at the beginning of our relationship, and I just remember that we would roll, and if it was a bad roll, we'd both go, oh, I didn't see it. And like, we were just totally fucking cheating the entire time. And it was kind of like, it hit the board, that's interference, just so we'd have a good time playing. And the game itself, I mean, obviously if you know anything about Talisman, it's roll to move, and you're going back and forth, but it does something unique. It basically takes, Talisman had the base game of go to the Crown Command and kill all the other players. That was the way that the game originally ended. Well, Relic has a bunch of alternative endings. Well, alternative endings to Talisman, but this is one of the ways the game ended. And it would, make the end game different every single time. And it was interesting because of how the 3 separate decks worked of threat cards. And another thing is that the game itself is not actually... the game itself is hard, but it's not like Cutthroat. Like, I don't go after someone else to take their stuff or anything. So you definitely level up, and you feel more powerful by the end of it. Now, an expansion did allow player interaction, but there was actually a Nemesis player, and you needed a certain number of players to do that, which is interesting to play, because then it becomes like a one versus all kind of thing, which is really cool. And then the last expansion added a whole new sideboard, which I'm sure there were plans for more, but Games Workshop decided to be like to Fantasy Flight, so they can't do that anymore. So that's why Relic is my number 10. Number 9 is a game that I actually don't own, but I've done a run through for. Actually, I've done a run through for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these games. All right, half. I'm getting there. I actually just did a count of how many run-throughs I've done for my games. I've done 30 of my games. So I'm on my way. Anyway, so it's, number 9 is a game that I actually don't own anymore, and there's a very good reason which I'll explain, but it is Through the Ages, a new story of civilization. I've never played the original. That clocks in at around, 180 to 240 minutes, which, if you've seen my run-through, is pretty accurate. The box has 120 minutes. That's if you're cheating. playing by yourself and you don't want to finish the game because you realize you can go play Civilization on your computer. And that's the reason why I don't have it anymore, is because if I really wanted to play, and this is a good credit to the game, like this actually isn't bad at all, is that it is so like Civilization in board game form. I'd rather go play Civilization on video game form because it does it, I mean, Civilization on the computer is still way better than, you know, the board game, but that's because it's streamlined, it's fleshed out, it has more to it. That if I want to if I want to do something for 6 hours, I want to do that on the PC. So, but still, I have a really good time. Another reason why I got rid of it is because it would never come to the table, like ever. Like I have 6-hour games, but a lot of people enjoy those more than they do Through the Ages. You can watch my run through. It's a 3-part run through. I'm gonna be honest, it's not the best. It's a very strategy heavy game, so there's not a whole lot of communication, but it's so good. It's such a good game, and you feel like your civilization is being built, and you feel like your strategy is working out in the end, and the interaction between players, while not heavy, is there through war cards or packs that you can make, so you can actually help each other out and develop your own strategy through a bunch of cards. But it is very, very long, and it does deserve to make this list because it is such a solid Civilization game. Probably the best out there that I can think of that I've personally played. But I mean, it's very long, and okay, here's what ruins it. Honestly, I don't know why it's on my list if I keep talking bad about it. But the box doesn't prep anyone for that amount of time. It says 120 minutes. And that is just simply not true. But for a Civilization game, it is fantastic, and I love the mechanisms of the game. You know, the card drafting, the resource management, almost in a sense based off your government, is really, really cool. You have a certain number of civ actions you can take and a certain number of military actions you can take. And you kind of want to balance both, as you do in the Civilization, but you don't necessarily have to, because the game is all about like glory or whatever, reputation, I think. I can't remember what they called it, but yes, you're going to get a lot of points for military, but you don't have to go military. So I love it in that regard, but I had to explain why I don't have it anymore. But that's my number 9, Through the Ages. My number 8 is actually a game that is, I think this is the first time it's made the top 10, which is surprising. That's not true. That's not true, but it's made, anyway, it's Star Wars Rebellion. My number 8 is Star Wars Rebellion. That clocks in at around 180 to 240 minutes. Yeah, I think that's about right. Actually, I was pretty generous with generous with Through the Ages. Like that's probably about 180 to 360 minutes, if I was being honest. But Star Wars Rebellion, yeah, it takes a good couple hours to play. And, I mean, what can I say about it? It is Star Wars, the old trilogy, or the first trilogy, in a box. Like, you basically are playing those movies, which is great. And one of my favorite things about it is the fact that both sides are playing a completely different game. It's kind of like a cat and mouse, hide and go seek. On the Rebellion side, is they pick a base and hope that the Empire doesn't find it, or if they do, don't blow it up, gives them time to escape. But even if they do find it and the rebels can escape, then they basically leave all of their, you know, units behind, and so it's like, oh shit, now we have to start all over, and we're only limited to where we can go. And the Empire has to find the base to win the game. The rebels, on the other hand, have to complete objectives to lessen the time it takes. So the Empire, it has a certain amount of time to find them, and if the rebels complete a whole bunch of objectives, then they shorten that time the Empire has. It is stressful the entire time as the Empire, stressful as the rebels, and they both play two different games. And I can't decide if it's balanced. I think it's in favor of the rebels, which is unique in a game like this. Typically, those types of games that it's very, very focused on the offensive. And, well, I guess the rebels can be offensive. I've seen it happen, and it actually worked out. My main complaint with the game is the fact that it does, after a while, start to feel the same each time. Like, at a certain point, you've seen all the cards, you know what they're going to do. Nothing's a surprise anymore on what the enemy can do. So you kind of have that level of strategy, I guess. That's why it's number 8 on the list and not higher. Because while I love Star Wars, people know what you're doing whenever you place, oh, Darth Vader's going here. Okay, I know what he's doing there. And that kind of ruins it a little bit for me. It's like, wow, there's no shock. But there's a redeeming quality. There's an expansion coming out, and it has the new Rogue One expansion, so I think they're adding more planets. I know they're adding a whole bunch of more cards and those people, and that's exactly what that game needed, was expansion. So hopefully they can mask some of that sameness, or some of that, oh, you're putting Darth Vader on that. Crap, what's he doing? Instead of, I know what it is, So, but, I mean, it's probably, it's a really good Star Wars game, and one I actually don't mind sitting at the table, even though I've seen it for a while, it's still really good. But I actually like playing Rebels more than I do Empire. But I have found the Rebel base and blown it up before. That was a lot of fun. So it's a good one. Star Wars Rebellion, my number 8. My number 7 is oh, here it is. Can you see it? Middle-earth Quest. Middle-earth Quest is my number 7, and that clocks in at around 180 minutes. The only reason I'm looking, I can't even see it. That's about right. Okay, so you know how I said Star Wars Rebellion, it's a 2-player game. Both sides play something completely different. That's even more so with Middle-earth Quest, and I love it even more because it's Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings. It's not like the people from the movies. I would guess maybe those are real people from the books. I'm not entirely sure, but it is set in that universe, and I love Lord of the Rings more than Star Wars, like way more than. I love fantasy more than sci-fi. But wow, this game is super unique, and actually one of my very first trade. Actually, I think it was my first trade I did on Board Game Geek. It was I traded Clash of Cultures and its expansion for this one, and the guy, luckily enough, he was an awesome guy. I hope maybe he's a subscriber. Maybe he watches this. I don't know. But he was actually on his way to like vacation or something, and he happened to drive by Joplin, where I was living at the time, and we met up. And great condition of the game, and I was so excited because it was Middle-earth Quest. I couldn't find it anywhere, and like it's not Lord of the Rings in the box, but it's damn near close, and it's really unique at movement. It kind of takes that rune-bound movement, where you roll the terrain dice and that's how you can move. That's kind of the same. You move around, and each space has a terrain, and there's events you can go to as this is as the heroes to get some training, or to go get some unique cards at the event, get some points, and like advance the track. Whereas, so that's what they're trying to do, while also fighting and getting more powerful to hopefully defeat. I think it's either you get the ring there. No, I think you have to defeat. It's been a while since I played, but you have to defeat the Mouth of Sauron. I believe is the end game. It's like a fight, or the Nazgul. Whereas the Sauron player, so it is a 4 it can go up to 4 players. I've only ever played it as 2 because I feel that works out a little bit better. But the Sauron player is playing a radically different game. While the heroes are in charge of really the board, they're doing a lot of stuff on the board. Sauron is doing like a whole bunch of behind the scenes, secrecy kind of stuff. Like he's making plots happen, which advance his markers on the track even more. Getting corruption to spread from all the places, while also having the ring race and the Mouth of Sauron and some other guy, I can't remember his name. Go out and fight the hunters, and it's so unique and such a different level of strategy that I absolutely love it. The reason why it's at number 7 is because I hardly ever get to play it, because the rulebook is pretty bad. So at this point I probably would just need a refresher. I wouldn't have to read the whole thing again. But another thing about it is the combat is fantastic. It's kind of like a rock, paper, scissors. Read your enemy, which does a really good job at that. If I was fighting as a goblin, the heroes know, okay, his deck mostly consists of range cards. And you can play to that. Like if your opponent plays a range card, it actually does 0 damage and you do double, or something like that. Or if your opponent plays a melee card, you do double damage while also you take damage, but you'll deal double. It's stuff like that, and it's really, really cool in that sense. I really like the combat system because it's not like roll dice. Oh, I rolled higher than you, you lose. It's no. I mean, you can get, you know, shit combat cards, but I believe there's ways to, you know, mitigate that. But you can sit there and you're like, okay, what's he gonna do? If I was him, I would do this because then he's probably thinking I'm gonna do this. But what if he's thinking, and like, it's a mind game. It's getting inside the mind of your opponent, which is brilliant. And so that's my number 7, Middle Earth Quest. And my number 6 is actually a very similar game, but not really, or at all, actually, to my number 7, but that is War of the Ring, which is the 2nd edition. Really want the deluxe version because I really love this game. That clocks in at around 150 to 180 minutes. I've done a run through for that game. Actually, I've done a run through for Through the Ages, Star Wars Rebellion, and now War of the Ring. Actually, I just got the Lords of, I think, of Middle Earth expansion, which was hard to get, but really need to play that. Anyway, Lord of the Rings, it is set in the Lord of the Rings universe, that's why it's similar to Middle Earth Quest. But War of the Ring is it is such a good strategy war game, and that is pretty much Lord of the Rings in a box because of just the theme and everything that surrounds it is so atmospheric. And like, as the heroes, or the free peoples, you can win through 2 ways. You can get the Fellowship, who is sneaking and secretly, you know, trying to get to Mount Doom and throw the ring in the fire, which is a whole separate thing to do, while also in the midst of also trying to actually fight and win. You're most likely going to get the Fellowship to Mount Doom, but you could put all your resources into, you know, fighting and taking over a few strongholds. But that's difficult to do, even though you only need 4 points of military, whereas Sauron needs 10. But he also has unlimited resources and people, whereas the free people, every time a unit dies, it's gone. But my god, it is so good, and the expansions just make it better. The new one that they just put out, well, not just, but the new one they put out, that included the Ents, and for the free peoples it was the Ents, the Eagles, and the Ents, the Eagles, and who else did they put in? I cannot remember. I know the Lords of Middle Earth added like Elrond and Treebeard and specific people, whereas the new one, Warriors of Middle Earth, added races. And for the Shadow player, they added, you know, the Dunedain, not the Dunedain, man, I cannot remember what they're called. Basically, the people that Saruman hired to raid Rohan. And then, the ghosts for the free people of the mountain. I cannot remember the names at this point, but that's not the point. The Shadow player gets the ships, which allows them to use the sea and move and transport people that way. They get the spiders, and the coolest thing about War of the Ring is kind of its what if. What if this happened in Lord of the Rings? How would things play out? And this is the game to answer those questions. What if the Balrog actually helped Sauron win, which the Balrog is in the Lords of Middle Earth? What if the spiders actually came out and it wasn't just Shelob, but it was actually the whole race, and they fought the Ents and stuff like that? And it is amazing. And if both players are playing smart, it is a fantastic game. Long, but fantastic, and I love it. I love both sides. I really like the Shadow people in this one. It's just so great, and that's my number 6, War of the Ring. Halfway there. My number 5 is a fantastic game that replicates a wonderful series that I still need to finish, and I'm barely in. I think I'm like 15 episodes in. And that is Battlestar Galactica. Battlestar Galactica is probably the best trader mechanic game out there. Partly because there is the notion that someone is a traitor or not at the very beginning of the game. The first probably half of the game, I think you get halfway through to your destination, you're not sure if anyone's a traitor. But then at the second half, at some point, someone will be a traitor. You just don't know who. It could easily end up being you as well, because you deal out the sleeper cards. Unfortunately, I don't get this game to the table a whole lot because it clocks in at around 120 to 140 minutes. And it is a very busy game. Like, there is a lot going on, and it is so hard. Like, it's so hard because not only do you have the 4 threat dials of, I think, food, population, fuel, and damage, I think. Not only do you have to manage those and work together to do your best to not let any one of them hit 0, because once you do, you lose. Or Cylons win, humans lose. And so while you're trying to manage those 4, you're also worried about who the hell is a Cylon at any particular time. You can't trust anyone. And if anyone is doing a good job about being a hidden Cylon, then I mean, it looks like you can trust them, and that's the brilliant part. Now, obviously, there's a bunch of variants, and there's a bunch of expansions which add the ships, and I play with all of them except New Caprica. I don't really like that one a whole lot, but I do like all the other ones, and one of my favorite effects is also a sleeper Cylon, or I think that's what they're called, to where you're a Cylon, but you're one of the good ones, I guess, and so if people are trying to figure out what you are, what allegiance you are, and they pull that one, it's like devastating. It's like damaging effects, and it's so grounded in the theme. And the reason I know that is because I played the game before I watched the show, and while I was watching the show, I was making all these references because I saw it in the game. And I'm not a huge fan of like real life art. Like, I don't like, for example, like Game of Thrones. One of the Game of Thrones games, I think it was called the Iron Throne. It's Cosmic Encounter Game of Thrones. It's shit. But they have the, pictures from the show, and there's a lot of games that do that, and I don't really care for it, but here, maybe it's because I don't really like the shows that much. Game of Thrones, I like the books more than the show, but whatever. I'm one of those guys. But I really like the show for Battlestar Galactica, and I really need to finish it. So not only is it an amazing co-op game, I remember one of the first times playing it, we had 6 people, and we ordered pizza, and we had this huge night, and one of my friends, Chaz, was stress eating. Like, he was like walking around the table, he couldn't handle it. And those experiences, like, are my favorite that happen. So not only is it extremely thematic, like, and the game itself is actually really easy, and it's tense the entire time, because when you jump multiple times, you can either like try and warp jump really quick, to just get out of there if you're being swarmed by, it's a base star and all the stupid fucking ships. You can also, I mean, yeah, so it's just insane. And I mean, a variant I've never done is a revealed silence. Someone starts out as, that's stupid. Like, don't ever do that. That's so dumb. But all the characters have unique abilities based on what they were in the show. Now that I know the show a little bit, it makes more sense. It's just fantastic, and I really need to do a run-through for it. But that is my number 5, Battlestar Galactica. My number 4, I actually have done a run-through for, and it is long. I can actually verify that. So yeah, so this is an accurate time. My number 4 is Fury of Dracula, which clocks in at around, I think I'm being generous, 180 to 240 minutes. The run-through for us took about 4 hours. When I made this list, that was after that, obviously, but it probably is almost always, yeah, 3 to 4 hours. And but here's the credit. While some of these games, honestly, a lot of these games, nope, that's not true. Maybe Relic can drag on a little bit. The rest of these games keep you engaged every single step of the way. And Fear of Dracula does that probably better than almost any of these games, but I like the other games more. But Fear of Dracula is a hidden movement, one versus all game. One person plays Dracula, the other people play his hunters. And I have played both. I have finally played both. I've usually always played Dracula, that's the most advanced. And I've always won as Dracula. And so I was wondering, is it balanced? Like, does starting anywhere on the board really change the game? Because in other games, you kind of know. Letters from Whitechapel, you know Jack is starting where he killed the victim. But Fear of Dracula, Dracula could be anywhere. And so it's like, it's this intense game of cat and mouse, of the hunters using all their abilities, their weapons and stuff, trying to fight Dracula or find and kill him before he spreads his influence all over, you know, not the world, but all over, not Transylvania, it's Europe, I think. Yeah, all over Europe. And so the hunters have all these abilities that they can use, which give them advantages. So one allows them to have a whole bunch more items. Another allows her, it's Mina, to be able to, if she's in a spot with another hunter, to basically, she can kind of sense where Dracula is, so she can sense if he's in that region. So that's a huge ability. If she's not in the game, then it would be unbalanced. But the fact that Mina can be like, are you here? No? Okay, we can cut out 10 cities. Another one I think can have more tokens, and then I can't remember all the abilities. But each of them are unique and absolutely needed. Whereas Dracula also has abilities that he can do. He has these unique power cards which are thematic to Dracula lore. And so, one of my favorite things about this over Letters from Whitechapel, and while a long time ago, my very first top 10 games, I put Letters from Whitechapel over Fury of Dracula. I think. No, it's been so long I can't even remember. But I like the Jack the Ripper lore more than I do Dracula, but the fact that Dracula can fight back is all the difference. Whereas Jack is running the entire time, Dracula can do so, and he most likely will if the hunters do a good job. But there are times where it's like, oh, I can get a lot of points and a lot of influence if you are bitten and I bite you again, which kills you. So when it's nighttime, I'm near you. I've set myself. I'm going to attack you, and you can try that, and then they can be like, "Aha, garlic or steak or stuff like that," and it's just intense. And there was a time because I played the Hunters for the first time, where Luke played Dracula. He's probably my most experienced board gamer friend that does this my show with me, and so we were playing, and he was like to be able to get into the mind of Dracula, it came to a point where I was so on his trail the entire time that he was like, should I just play my movement cards face up? I mean, what's the point? He was getting so frustrated, and we ended up killing Dracula. It was awesome. So by that, it's probably the best hidden movement. I really do like Letters from Whitechapel for the lore itself. But as an overall game, Fury of Dracula. But here's the problem. Fury of Dracula will always be long. Like, it will always be 3 to 4 hours. I've played this game multiple times and it is always long. So, unless you have a good 3 hours at minimum to spend, unless both sides really, really suck, then expect a long game. But it's a chase, and it's stressful, and it's intense the entire step. So that's my number 4, Fury of Dracula. My number 3, Eldritch Horror, and I mean, you guys had to expect this to be on the list. Eldritch Horror clocks in at around, yeah, it's about right, 180 to 240 minutes, depending on the Ancient One, which Ancient One you have. And Eldritch Horror just keeps getting better and better with each expansion. The latest one, the Dreamlands, made it even more so thematic. Well, a lot of them like added boards, which also made them more like really thematic, but really only in that area. And I guess depending if you pick the Ancient One for that, but like they added adventures where you can go on like side quests, which are amazing. Like they're so cool because if you do them, then you get amazing items and stuff like that that are extremely helpful. But that's like this own mission, and the Dreamlands added. I've done a no run through review for the Dreamlands expansion, but I've also done a run through for Eldritch Horror. So, and it was back before Dreamlands came out. But not only did the Dreamlands add a sideboard, it added theme to the rest of the base game. So if people take a rest, they can actually, I think they can do something to go into the Dreamlands. And so it's a really cool mechanism that they added, unlike, oh, I'm actually going to Egypt, or I'm actually going to Antarctica, or like the smaller ones, I'm actually going to like a tomb or something. It just drastically changed the game. And one of my favorite things about Eldritch Horror is each person gets their own story. And while a lot of the game can be like, oh, what's like this is a co-op game, why aren't we doing everything together? Well, you are, just in different parts of the world. So, like, yes, technically you are helping each other for the overall greater purpose instead of actually, like, yeah, we're doing, like, Pandemic, where it's, like, everything is, like, kind of interconnected. It's like, well, yes, everything is indirectly related. One guy could solely be out there fighting monsters, whereas everyone is doing, you know, finding all the mysteries and all the clues, and it's like, oh, well, I don't feel like I'm contributing. No, you are. You're killing all the fucking monsters that will kill us if you don't kill them. Or I'm going to go on this adventure to find whatever, my sister or my special thing to get us this artifact that will greatly help us. Or I go gather to the tombs and to, you know, the other areas to get, you know, great item. Depending on your character, you can pass them around, and you can definitely buff everyone up, while others are best at, you know, going on clues. And so everyone is connected, just not absolutely directly. While some, yes, you team up and you guys need to team up, and it's great. One of my favorite things are the prelude cards. So it's like if you're kind of bored with base setup, just shuffle this huge stack of prelude cards and draw one, and that kind of alters setup, which makes the game a little bit different. So, yeah, I have a friend. He has actually played this up to 8 players, and man, I've never played it at max capacity, but I really, really want to. I have played it at 6, and we got really close, but it was awesome. And, oh man, Eldritch, it's so streamlined. It is just it's so good. That, man, it's just a blast whenever you're playing. So that's why it's my number 3, Eldritch Horror. My number 2, now I know this is the first time this has happened, and that's because I usually tie these two in together with whenever I talk about them, but at this point I do feel they are drastically different enough that they can merit being on the same list. Not every list I'll probably pick one. My number 2 is Arkham Horror. And you might be like, oh, but Seth, that's cheating, and they're the same game. Well, no, they're not. I think I would know if they were the same game. And most people, yes, will pick one over the other. I usually do. But this time, Arkham Horror lasts roughly around the same time, unless you are doing every single expansion, which I have done. I recorded it, but it was such a train wreck that I just deleted it. It lasts about 180 to 240 minutes, most likely longer. And you might be asking, why did you put Arkham over Eldritch? And one, it was my second game, board game I got into. First was Talisman, and then Arkham. But the biggest difference is, while yes, Eldritch is more streamlined, and I will most likely break out Eldritch for new people or to beginners, or most of the time I will break out Eldritch because it's easier to explain to people. Whereas Arkham, I break out to a little bit more advanced people. If you played a couple board games with me, you probably know, I mean, most of the time I actually really don't care your level of knowledge, especially co-op games. So like, I'll break out Arkham if you've never played the game before, and because I'm there to help. Like if it was you know, competitive, there's no way I would break out a game like that, because it's like, I'm not going to hold back, and so you're going to hate games. So I can walk you through it, but here's the biggest difference between the two. I honestly believe Arkham takes more strategy, and it is more stressful. And the reason why I say that is because in Eldritch Horror, most of your monsters are static. They basically took, in Arkham, obviously it's Arkham, Massachusetts, and it's, you know, attachments, you know, Kingsport and Innsmouth, and what's the other one? Kingsport, Innsmouth, and Dunwich, which are all pretty much part of that. Then in Eldritch, it's a world scope. So you have Tokyo, you have Sydney, you have, you know, Arkham, you have San Francisco. So you have all these areas. Well, the monsters in Eldritch most typically stay, you know, where they show up. Oh, like Arkham is overrun. It has 10 monsters there. Arkham's dead to us. You never have to. You can go without ever having to deal with them. Which, I mean, some of them are going to have effects that are triggering. You want to deal with them, but you still don't have to. In Arkham, that is not the case. There are a bunch, like, monsters run the streets, and you have to run around and you have to avoid them, or get ready to fight them, or sneak past them. And so you can sit there and plan and be like, okay, we need one more gate closed. I'm going to book it to that last gate and go to the other world, and hopefully I survive the other world and come back and close this gate. and then you draw the Mythos card, and it moves this fucking insane monster right in the middle of the street that you can no longer actually get to the gate, or you don't have enough movement. And then, not only does that happen, you have all the other expansions. If you're playing with them, I would not recommend playing with all three. We did it. I think it actually went relatively well, except the reason why I didn't, it was like fucking 7 hours long, and one of my friends kept falling asleep, so I was like, I'm not putting that on here. And I think we totally messed up on the Ancient one. It was a bad time. So anyway, so if you're playing with the expansions, they all add a little bit more. Now you want to play with more people if you're adding the expansions. But I really like how Arkham is set up. I feel like it's a little bit more thematic in, you know, the lore. Like each character, while I do like in Eldritch how they have kind of like you can go one last goodbye. It's kind of like if they lose all their health, you can go visit them and they have like a special encounter for their health or their sanity, then you can do that. But Arkham actually has, you know, like a page of what they're doing here and a shit ton of cards, and sometimes it can be too much, but nostalgia does play a little bit of a factor in here, but I do think Arkham requires more strategy, and Eldritch took away the scare and the stress factor that Arkham had. There's more cards, there's more things to do, like each location has their set deck of cards that you know, vary the game. I've never had one game you know, play the same. There's more you know, ancient ones out there. While Eldritch, yes, does have their individual decks, they don't really tie into the ancient one. I mean, yeah, they do have their own special decks, but I mean, like the Mythos deck is their own special one, but it doesn't really tie into the ancient one except just the type of card. Whereas Arkham also was the same, but they didn't allude to that. It was they had their ability, and then you had a deck of Mythos cards. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just which one do I want to teach someone? Which one do I feel like playing? And most of the time I feel like playing Arkham, that's why it is my number 2. So, finally, number 1. My number 1 long game. The game I'd rather play for as long as it is. I kind of did this list also in length a little bit, but it really came down to which games would I rather play for this amount of time. Obviously, I don't really want to play Relic for 3 hours, and then it just gets, you know, oh, I'll play, what, it takes 16 hours? Yep, I'll play it. Play for 16 hours straight. And my number 1, if you can guess, is Twilight Imperium. Did you guess it? I don't know if you did. I don't know if you've watched my show a lot. You probably would have expected Talisman. No, and the reason why Talisman is not my number 1, well, yes, it does take a long time. It only takes a long time if you're playing with all the expansions. The base game itself probably takes an hour, like if that, at this point. So if I'm playing with all the expansions, then yes, I'd much rather play Talisman. If I had to say, probably takes 180 minutes to 240. I'd probably say 3 to 4 hours. And yes, I'd rather play that for 4 hours over any other game. But that's not what I did here. Each game here takes that long with their base game. So, Twilight Imperium. Why is it my number 1? Well, first of all, it clocks in at roughly around 240 to 360 minutes. Like, I gave it a grace period of 4 hours if you're playing with people who've played before, 6 hours if, I mean, 8 hours if none of you have played, 6 hours if a few of you have played before. And I've played this game 4 times? 4 times in my career. It is coming at some point to my channel, but I need the right people. But Twilight Imperium is one of the best strategy games, like one of the best 4X games, and there's so many variants, just so, like, with the expansions don't even add to the length of the game. It's just long. But it is an intense war game. Like, you are just sitting there, and a lot of people, I've heard this before, and I've never played it this way. Play it like Space. They play it like Risk, where just conquer the most. I'm like, that's so fucking dumb. Like, I would never play Twilight Imperium like that. Yes, you go for your objectives, you go for the points, but what you do is you get an expansion that removes that stupid 8 tile that you get, that all you do is grab it and you get a point, and if you're playing a short game, you go to 10, I think? 10 or 14. No, like, I don't like games where a strategy is to not play. Like, or where the strategy now becomes, oh, you don't really want to play, but I do, so you're just going to keep grabbing the 8 card where I'm going to avoid it because it doesn't do anything for me, and I'm going to do stuff that I want to do for my strategy, but if I let you take the 8 card, you're going to win because you just get a free point. No. They removed that with the expansion, and dear God, that was the best thing they could have done. So now, people actually have to play. So, what makes this game so great? Well, first of all, it really has everything. It has a tech tree, has a bunch of technology cards that you can just build to whatever strategy you want. Like my friend Haley went where he was basically building swarms that buffed up his swarms of fighters. There's, you know, obviously the tech that you can use to get a war sun, and some races are better at it than that. It has a mechanism that I've never seen in a game before, and that's politics. And I mean, there's probably games out there, but it actually adds laws and voting, and the variants and the expansions add, you know, advisors you can use to go out and they help you. You can assassinate other people's advisors to like give you the edge, and the more planets you conquer, the more reputation you have to actually vote. And if like if you want to go that route and just constantly do politics cards, that'll benefit you because you have 50 votes and because you have all the most planets, and it's like great. The flagships for each race are vastly different. The races themselves, I don't even know how many races there are, but there's a shit ton, and they each do their own thing and they have their own benefit, but it's not so like OP that forces you to go a certain way. One of the races, my favorite race to play is the turtle race, because they're so heavily politically involved. And each race has a backstory, and the game itself has a pretty long you know, intro. Oh man, just doused in theme and lore. And there are times whenever I was reading the intros and like it came to an end, and I was like, but I want to know more. I want to know what happened. The only thing that could make this game better is if it was scenario based. Like you could, like the intros add up to stuff, and like there's an end game almost instead of just trying to you know have the most points. But now one of my favorite variants that I've added is something I've never been able to do. But it's pretty much the Death Star variant, where a fighter has a very, very, very slim chance of actually destroying a war sun. And I've never been able to do it, but I always play with it. You know, the map is drastically different, and it's just, oh man, the negotiation of allying with each other. And I mean, while combat is, yes, you roll dice, but you can mitigate it enough, and you decide what's being destroyed, and it is... like 6 hours like flies by. You're just like, oh shit, you're so involved each time, and it's fantastic. And I hardly ever get it to the table because it is an event. Like last time I played, probably about a year ago at this point, I actually had to make a Facebook event as schedule. And whenever you do that, people have no problem. Like my friends were like, yep, we'll be there, and they approved. And instead of just like, you can't just be like, oh, you guys want to play Twilight Imperium? Oh yeah, sure, how long does it last? 6 hours. No one just wants to douse 6 hours down the drain. Well, a few people, I could probably name a few people who would actually be into it, but it's polite to invite someone if you're going to do something like that. But man, I know Luke really loved it, Yukari really loved it. Kat doesn't really care for these types of games, but she does play and she does like it. It's just, and see the variants don't even bog down the game, and like it's not only one... I don't even think it's a variant. It has to be a variant, but replacing the 8 tile, that does fix the game. But the rest of them are just extra stuff. Advisors, special fighters, like special you know, bounty hunters. Pretty much you can have the different tokens you can place on each planet, where it's like, oh, this is actually radiated, and it's just combat is so great because there's sky combat, and then if you win, you can actually drop down and do ground combat, and you can also build stuff to prevent that from happening. You can shoot down onto the planet. There's just so much going on, and in all reality, what it really comes down to, the game is not that complicated. Like, maybe I just have a knack for it that I'm just like, no, it's not a problem. But I mean, it's really not that complicated, I don't think. But anyway, that is my number 1, Twilight Imperium. And that's it, everyone. That is my top 10 list of long games. I mean, if I had to put Talisman on here, it'd obviously be number 1, and Relic would be an honorable mention. But I didn't want to do that. I think I wanted to maybe make it a surprise. Be like, haha, Talisman's not always my number one. Because it doesn't always take, you know, long. I had a criteria. I think it was games that lasted 2 hours or longer. So that's it, everyone. Let me know what your favorite long games are. Hopefully they are long games. Let me know if you like any of the games on this list. If you think I'm wrong, oh, what the hell? Twilight Imperium only takes 60 minutes. It's like, well, what game are you playing? So that's it, everyone. I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you want to support us, you can go ahead and click that link to go to my Patreon account. If you have any suggestions, you can go ahead and click the link in the show notes below to go to my Board Game Geek list. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.